I have with me Dr. Shetty, man who single-handedly revolutionized healthcare in India, made it affordable, accessible. And I have with me Mr. Chawla, who's also single-handedly revolutionized Indian journalism over the years. But I'd like to begin by asking Dr. Shetty, there is a sense of panic and fear even now, despite the fact that the cases are going up. But India does have one of the lowest mortality rates in the world as well. So I'd like to ask you, Dr. Reddy, how successful in hindsight has the lockdown been? Have we been able to use that time to the best that we could?
The best gift or the best strategic decision our government took was to go for an early lockdown.
Okay.
And the second best decision they took was to extend it.
Right.
Now, what is the benefit of this early lockdown, extended lockdown? When COVID just entered India, we knew that it will spread.
Hmm.
But if it spread, we needed to be prepared.
Right.
And the most important thing is to protect the health workers, for which PPE is the most important component to prevent us from getting infected.
Yes.
Uh, at that time, there were 3 PPE manufacturers, and they were nowhere near the required, they could never go up to the level what a country of 1.3 billion needs.
Right.
2 months after the lockdown, with all the government intervention, today we have over 100 PPE manufacturers.
Right.
And we are debating about exporting PPE to rest of the world.
Right.
And this magical transformation would not have happened if it was delayed. If the lockdown wasn't there, the health system would have been overwhelmed, and half the country's doctors by this time would be infected without proper attire.
Right.
When the COVID just entered before the lockdown, the whole country had hardly 35 or 45,000 ventilators.
Right.
And there was only one ventilator company in India which got the accreditation from Europe many years ago. Today we have many companies making ventilators, and we are debating about exporting ventilators. All this happened in just 2 months. It wouldn't have happened but for the lockdown. And more than anything else, our understanding of the disease has changed significantly. When COVID just started, everyone was talking about ventilating these patients and doing all kinds of things with the ventilator. What type of ventilator? I'm sure you heard so much of debate about ventilation.
Yes. Yeah.
We have gone 100% on the other side, saying that do not ventilate these patients.
Right.
If you ventilate, the mortality will be very, very high. Go for alternative ways of oxygenating the patient. That single decision by the people who are at the front end can make a big impact on the outcome of the disease. And also we have the first problem was the fear by the medical community. Now that it was gradually introduced to the doctors, that greatest fear of looking at a touching COVID patient has gone. It is exactly like how our reaction was when HIV first came to the world.
That's right.
So on the whole, the best thing what happened in the whole strategy of managing COVID was the early extended lockdown. But if you ask me whether we have to extend it now, my personal opinion is that no.
Right.
I don't think it will make medically any significance.
Right.
Doctor, I'll ask this question here because you're saying no lockdown is required, because I'm looking at the figures. The doubling rate in India is now in the shortest period is going now. In America, it's 55 days.
Right.
India is about 22 days. What is this doubling rate of, though I don't agree with the top line cases, I agree with the active cases. But by unlocking the economy or country, don't you think the doubling rate has gone up so that creates more fear and panic?
You can go for a lockdown, but as soon as you loosen the lockdown, we cannot remain in lockdown forever.
Right.
One day or other, we have to open it up. The moment you open it up, it goes all over the place. So you're not really winning I'll just give an example how it spreads. It's very interesting. now that we have enough time to look at things, we have two big hospitals in Calcutta.
Right.
One is near Howrah, other one is near Jadavpur, about 20 kilometers apart. About a month and a half ago, the Howrah hospital that entire region was flooded with COVID patients. Whereas Mukundpur hospital was relatively quiet, hardly any patients. Today, just yesterday, we were testing 100 patients in Mukundpur area, where our hospital is. Nearly more than 50% of the patients were COVID positive. The same thing on the same day we did it in the Howrah area, there are hardly any patients.
Right.
In a matter of 1.5 months, the whole disease spectrum has changed in terms of spread. So essentially, what is going to happen is every part of the country, eventually, I am not an epidemiologist, I'm only a heart surgeon, but looking at the way the disease is behaving, it will go to virtually most parts of the country, and you will see multiple peaks happening different times. Like Tamil Nadu had very high incidence, Maharashtra had very high incidence, Bangalore hardly had an incidence. Now our incidence is going up. The same pattern we believe will happen in every city, every district, and perhaps every village. As I said, I'm not an expert, but this is the way I feel it will happen based on the way how virus has behaved so far.
Right. Dr. Shetty, may I ask, when you talked about the benefits of the lockdown, unfortunately, two areas which you have been talking about at length. One is, of course, the trained manpower, trained doctors, trained nurses, which you advocated that MCI should relax their regulations and allow at least 1.5 lakh trained doctors to emerge. And the other aspect being the beds, the hospital beds. And you've talked of large facilities rather than spreading it across hospitals. So these two areas seem to me unfortunately not attended to as seriously as they should have. Would you agree?
The first part of confining to few areas, they have done everything what we suggested.
Okay.
Like in Karnataka state,
Right.
usually the first 2 months, only one or two big hospitals in the state, mainly managed by the government,
Right.
was taking the brunt.
Right.
Yeah. About the relaxing the norms, that hasn't happened, but I am optimistic.
Right.
I feel we have no choice. If we have to reduce the mortality, we need to produce few thousand doctors, maybe around 50,000 doctors. We may have to get at least 1.5 to 2 lakh nurses.
Yes.
To come to the forefront, and this should be a fluid workforce, because this workforce should be diverted wherever there is a peak. They go there, attend, and the peak will last for not more than 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 1 month. They serve that area, then it will peak somewhere else, and they move from one area to the other area.
Right.
Especially when the COVID starts affecting districts.
Right.
In the districts, there are very few big hospitals, and the only big hospital is a government hospital.
Right. So for the benefit of our viewers, would you just explain to us how we can produce this number of doctors and nurses overnight? You've explained it in a lot of pieces that you've written, but if you could just tell our viewers.
I'll give a simple example.
Yes.
We want to see first of all, a doctor with MBBS degree,
yes,
without any experience in managing critical care patients in the ICU, is not very greatly useful in a COVID ICU. COVID ICU, we need people who can interact with the man and the machine, and who can understand the data coming from the cardiac monitor, who are able to adjust the ventilator. There are a lot of gadgets surrounding this area. So they should be very familiar with that. Now, first criteria, these doctors should be young. They should, because if they are old, they obviously have some comorbid conditions.
right,
Not safe. Now, we have about 25,000 doctors under the National Board of Examination, or under the MCI, MD courses,
Right.
which is conducted all over the country. About 25,000 doctors have finished their training. 3 years training program, they already finished.
Hmm.
Some of them even appeared for the theory exam.
Hmm.
Now, all these doctors, the final exam hasn't happened.
Hmm.
They are waiting for the exam. Some of them are, of course, working in hospitals, but most of them don't even have a job because they don't have a degree,
Hmm.
specialist degree. Now, if the government says that this year, you don't need to appear for the exam,
Hmm.
you work in a COVID hospital, mainly in the districts, for 1 year, we will exempt you from the taking the exam.
Right.
That's it. You got 25,000 skilled doctors with huge experience in managing these patients
Hmm.
in just one policy change.
Yeah.
So,
Doctor, you have raised a very fundamental question. I'm just
Yeah.
trying to say about medical education.
Yeah.
India is perhaps the only country, there are about 400, 500 medical colleges, isn't it? That's the number I'm told.
yeah.
And in a country of 1.3 billion people, even the colleges you can't open a new college there. Many
Yeah.
regulations, there are nobody degrees, and lots of corruption happens that be there. In the MCI, people are involved in scandals. You must have seen that. So what is this medical education? Doctors are not there. You need 150,000 doctors, as you pointed out, paramedics to attend these cases. How do you change? Don't you think that COVID has given one challenge, that how to improve and raise the standard of our medical education and supply chain as well?
Yeah.
See, I believe that the government has some plans. I'm very optimistic, and I have taken, or I have witnessed all the kind of various steps taken by the Ministry of Health and the central government, state governments. Most of the things what was required, they have done. The problem will be when the COVID goes to districts, which it will.
Hmm.
That is the time we will be exposed.
Hmm.
So we believe before that happens, I'm optimistic government will take action and we can produce. You see, we are the only country in the world from thin air, we can produce that many specialists, mainly because specialists are already trained, but they're not licensed. I will give an example. There are more than 2,000 doctors who have worked in the critical care unit for more than 3 years as critical intensivist after MBBS degree. And they have a certificate from the Association of Critical Care Medicine, the association. They have already passed the exam, but their qualification is not recognized by Medical Council of India. The Medical Council of India says, okay, we recognize only these people's training, provided they work in a COVID hospital in a district, in the district for 1 year. It's a win-winning thing for everyone.
Yeah.
Hey, Doctor, I'm asking you another question. I'm saying that 400 colleges, odd colleges in the country, don't you think the government should be more flexible, or MCI should be more flexible in permitting the opening of new medical colleges and hospitals as against what is the norms now? Doesn't India need more medical colleges or hospitals?
Actually, with the existing number of medical college, today we have about 60,000 or 70,000 undergraduation seats.
Right.
We can double the number of undergraduation seats with the same number of medical colleges. It is possible. But what is important right now for the country is a specialist.
Yeah.
There is a big difference between what a MBBS doctor can do and what a medical specialist can do. Because we are a very rigidly regulated industry. Healthcare across the world is very rigidly regulated. And even if in this very interesting observation in our industry is, Elon Musk could create a spaceship and he's dreaming of landing in Mars. He's not a rocket scientist, right? And he learned, and he created it. In medical industry, if I'm trained to do the heart operation, if I take a chest X-ray using an X-ray machine, I lose my license. So essentially we are certified for particular specialty. And that specialty training program slots are extremely limited, extremely limited. Unless we open up the higher medical, say the country like US has 19,000 undergraduation seats and 45,000, more than 40,000 PG seats.
Right.
So essentially, we too have to change because country's requirement is medical specialists right now.
Right.
Until that happens, we will have a serious problem in managing ICUs, especially in the COVID situation. There are hardly few thousand intensivists who can manage a critically ill patient in ICU. That is the biggest problem.
Yeah. So when you talk about districts, you've again talked at great length and written at great length about the decentralization and empowering district administrations to take decisions. And you've also highlighted the Bhilwara example. When do you see COVID reaching districts? And do you believe that there is a plan that state governments or all state governments have come up with to deal with it at the district level?
See, the state governments have addressed, virtually most state governments, I keep observing what is happening in different
Right.
states. Most state governments are very serious and they have a focused approach. But their handicap is the shortage of doctors and nurses.
Right.
Especially when you go to district headquarters hospital. We have about 730
30
district
districts. Yeah.
Okay. And in these district hospitals, there are hardly 2 or 3 anesthetists.
Right.
And they are the only people who can actually manage a patient, COVID patient in the ICU. Imagine if their 200 beds get flooded with COVID patients and about 50 patients need oxygen and ventilation.
Yeah.
What is going to happen?
Right.
In the city, when this thing happened, you can always divert the patient to the private hospital. Like my hospital today has more than 150 COVID positive patients.
Right.
We created a separate building for COVID positive patients. There are more than 25 patients on a ventilator, on life support systems, right? And we are short of doctors. If any more patients come, we are not in a position to manage them.
Right.
This is a situation for a hospital which is a postgraduate institution with so many doctors. You can just imagine what will be the plight of a district headquarters hospital.
Yeah.
So that is my worry.
We've
See,
seen
doctor,
that-
other thing which
yeah.
Other thing which I noticed in the newspapers and read it also, and Kejriwal, our chief minister, also made a statement. This competition between states and center creating more beds and beds over beds. In Delhi, for example, half the beds are vacant, and still they are adding 25,000 more beds in 1 week time. Then some other districts and state governments are competing with each other. How the beds are coming, from where are they coming, and beds without any supporting equipment there. Do you think that we should emphasize more on other protocol rather than creating more and more beds which are not being utilized even?
See, unfortunately, beds cannot treat patients.
Yeah.
Doctors. We need trained doctors.
Yeah.
Correct. That's the question I was raising.
Yeah.
So the narrative has to change,
Right.
partly from the media.
Yeah.
We all talk about shortage of beds. We have enough beds. I can give few hundred beds.
Yeah.
But who's going to, if a patient is lying there, who's going to take care of him?
Correct.
Why it is I'm getting a bit restless is there are 1.5 lakh, nearly 2 lakh nurses
Yeah.
who finished their 3 years and 4 years of training in nursing.
Right.
They are ready to appear for the final exam. Exam will happen in September.
Right.
Now, education institutions are closed. So 1.5 lakh or 2 lakh nurses staying at home, doing nothing, getting tense about the exam,
Yeah.
and not touching patients because they are not supposed to work. They're students.
Yeah.
Now, if we have a policy that, okay, this batch of nurses, they have already finished 3 and 4 years of training in nursing, there is nothing more they can learn as a student nurse. They can learn once he becomes a nurse. And we will exempt all of them from appearing for the exam. We will give them a nursing degree, provided they work in the district hospital for 1 year. That's all.
Right.
Doctor, that's a very interesting thing you have suggested.
Yeah.
This has been done in England. This has been done in Italy. In what way our life is more precious than Italians and the British?
Yeah.
We're all human beings.
Yeah.
Doctor, you are just making it interesting. If I conclude in that way, that you have suggested earlier also, doctors who are waiting their final exams to be over, they should not be waiting. They should be put in the COVID hospitals in district level. And the nurses, it's a big number, both put together, 60,000 doctors and 150,000 nurses. And we have shortage of both. So this means that that policy should be amended. You are demanding that MCI and Government of India should give some kind of concession, waiver the final examination, and give them the degree after they serve 1 year in the hospital. Is that what you are saying?
Yes.
Yes. You see, the medical education is an apprenticeship. You cannot really decide on the performance of the doctor during the 15 minutes or a half an hour of viva or a theory, 2 hours of theory exam, exactly what he has learned in 3 years or 4 years. Okay, essentially, these are the doctors who are already graduate. They are already doctors. They have a degree to practice. I'm talking about after they become doctors, after they become interns, finish the internship, then they have undergone 3 to 4 years of apprenticeship. You recognize apprenticeship. I'm not saying this should be this is the way it should happen in the future. All I am trying to say is that these are exceptional times. So we have to take exceptional steps to tide over the crisis. It is one-off event. In my lifetime, I hope it won't happen again. It is one-time event.
Yeah.
So this is, and we are in such a privileged position to make it happen.
Yeah. So what do you think is preventing the government from making such a simple declaration, which can revolutionize the situation right now?
You see, the problem is when you talk about a ICU COVID patient, like most policymakers think any doctor will do. But unfortunately, not any doctor can manage this patient. There are only doctors who had the prior experience in this area. That's the one problem. Second problem is essentially, we were thinking that we conquered COVID. The impression everyone had, including me, the way after the lockdown, the numbers started dwindling, and everywhere, or all the other countries, they're struggling, and we are doing so well. We thought, why bother about these extreme steps? But the last, I think, few weeks, the whole story has changed. So there is a revival of all these discussions now.
But doctor, we have a doctor as minister. Surely he knows these points and he's listening to all of you. I'm sure he's listening to all of you. So is there no way that you can sort of emphasize to the minister or, people in power in Delhi that this is so vital?
I'm optimistic they will do it. They are doing it because, I had the opportunity to interact with all of them officially, and they acknowledged all these views. Obviously, these things are very exceptional decisions. They have to look at all the implications, and I'm optimistic that it will happen. I'm agreeing.
Doctor, one thing is, sorry, you understand me. One thing is very clear. You're talking about figures that we thought we had conquered COVID. But I'm looking at the figure. Why this habit of giving the cumulative cases number every day? 7 lakh, this lakh. Because nowhere I've seen earlier, do you give a cumulative total of cancer patients today? You only give the fresh number of cases every year. By giving the total cumulative cases 7,50,000, out of which 4,90,000 have already recovered. In a country of 1.3 billion people, only 2,58,000 active cases are there. Is that not a good news? And out of those 258, in 10 cities, 10 states alone, 92% cases are there. So why these top line cases are always given? Those who are cured also include the number of cases in India. That is a misnomer. That's a misinformation. Who is doing it? Why is it being done? Why did you say that we have the active cases 2,58,000? That too in 10 states. So why this top line figure? You don't give top line figure for every disease which is continuously TB, HIV. We don't give those top line figure. if you give the top line figures of TB on HIV today, it will run into millions since it started.
Yes.
Don't you think that this dissemination of data is also creating panic and forcing the authorities to take decisions which are not logically justified? Getting more beds, at you point, I told you earlier, getting more ventilators which are not required. Now you have got some of them are inferior quality also, but that's a good thing that we have got it. But giving top line figures, I don't understand why top line figures are given. Total number of cases in India today, 7,64,000. Are total number of cases 7,64,000? No, because out of that, 4,95,000 have recovered.
Yes, yes, yes. See, if you really look at the way the COVID has behaved and our government policies, one day we'll all be proud about what government has done. I have no doubt about it. Because the way they have reacted, I work predominantly in Karnataka and few other states. They're very receptive. And I know we will win, but I want to win with as less pain as possible.
Right.
Yeah, that's all. See, if you ask me about the figure, what figure is important? There is only one figure what is important. That is how many patients are on the ventilator.
Correct. That's also. How many serious, critical cases, very important. Yes. Yeah. But that figure is not being given. For example, I saw a figure today in the worldwide. Number of cases recovered, number of cases critical in the beds in India. There are very little numbers as compared to 7 lakh cases or as compared to 2,58,000 people. Not even 10% are critical.
No, so that means tiny percentage, very small.
Very tiny, but yeah. So that means that figure. I'm just telling you that since you're part of the government, somewhere you can advise them. Why can't they give this figure? The critical cases in India are just tiny of the 130 crore people. So this panic is being created by giving top line figure repeatedly. TV headline: India become third country in the world. We are 130 crore people. How are we the largest in the world? I don't understand in terms of percentage of population affected by it.
Mr. Chawla, about the fear psychosis which has happened with all the hype and the news, you switch on any TV, any news media, it's only about the COVID. In a way, it has helped the country than harmed the country. I'll tell you why. We have now got enough evidence to prove that social distancing is something which has a huge impact on the way virus spreads. And I have seen the reaction of the people compared to what it was when the COVID started. It was very difficult for us to convince people to wear a mask. Today, when you're walking on the street, you hardly see anyone walking without the mask. So essentially, all these habits have changed only because of the fear. Because of fear that they may get the infection. But when you're wearing a mask, of course, you protect yourself, but you're also protecting others.
Right.
So the fear factor in India, people will change the habits only out of sheer fear, not by the knowledge.
The other thing which I wanted to ask you, number of cases when they count, test, for example, test is a big test. The slogan was started earlier, people not being tested. Because every country has different testing system. I don't understand. You as a doctor must be knowing. In America, there's one system. In Europe, it's another system. In India, there's another system. When you say the total number of tests conducted, it is a test of number of individual tested or number of tests done on any individual. What is the process? I don't understand.
I am also not 100% sure, but I assume it is a number of tests done. On the same individual, they would have done the test 2-3 times, but it will all get reported as number of tests done. This is my impression. Yeah.
It means one individual goes through 4 tests. It means that is 4 tests in the records. But in America, I saw that they count only 1 test, 1 individual.
See, I tested myself about 4 times because I operate every day and I see patients. And every time I have a cold and cough, I want to test myself. Mainly, first of all, I want to protect myself, and I also don't want to expose the patients. So like me, I'm sure there are many people who tested, many times. Yeah.
No, doctor, I'm not talking about individual getting tested like you are doing. I'm talking about various types of tests are conducted on an individual who is suspected with COVID. One test happened in the beginning, then happened second test, then happened third test. These are various tests happen on one individual before he confirmed COVID test. All these three tests are counted as 3 or as 1.
They are counted as 3. I think
As
so.
3,
Yeah.
but not in America and not in Canada.
Yeah, they have a
WHO, I wrote to them mail, I have not got a reply yet.
they have a better sophisticated.
ICMR has not replied even.
Yeah.
Because nobody knows test. How do you conduct a test? There's a number of tests because everybody crying. Test, test, test. I can conduct 10 tests on myself and say these are tests I've conducted. So you conduct 1,000 individual, 10 tests each, it becomes 10,000.
Yes.
Doctor, may I also ask another long-term question? Over the years, India's focus changed from, infectious diseases to lifestyle diseases because the number of fatalities there increased. TB is still, of course, the third largest killer in India, but we do have lifestyle diseases that precede them. But do you feel that there needs to be a re-engineering of the medical system in a way that relooks at the infectious diseases again? Because all our doctors were stars currently. You're all either cardiologists or cardiac surgeons. We don't seem to have as many epidemiologists as we ought to. Or this is my layperson's understanding. What do you think?
You see, it depends. It's very interesting how the policymakers run the policies.
Yeah.
With the idea of protecting people. I'll give one example. If you look at most countries' strategy on organizing better healthcare for the people,
Right.
they have a priorities. And if you go to any Ministry of Health in most of the developing countries, there is so much of emphasis on malaria, TB, and HIV.
Yeah.
There are departments created for TB, HIV. There is a lot of emphasis on these 3 diseases. Okay. Now, very interestingly, malaria, TB, and HIV across the world kills about 3 million people every year. And lack of access to safe surgery kills 17 million people. And if you scan the healthcare document of most of the developing countries, including India, there is no special mention about surgery as a healthcare priority for the nation.
Right.
And when I talk about surgery, I'm not talking about heart operation, brain operation. I'm talking about 3 basic surgeries which can be done in a community health center. These are called bellwether procedures. That is emergency cesarean section for obstructed delivery, and laparotomy, that's opening the tummy for a burst appendix, and surgery for compound fractures. Only these 3 types. If we have the infrastructure to do this in a community health center, nearly 17 million deaths we can have an impact. But there is no policy.
Right. 17 million worldwide or India?
Across the world.
Across the world.
Across the world. Yeah. So essentially, our entire healthcare strategy has to change in terms of building the healthcare infrastructure around performing the surgeries.
Right.
Now, the reason is, if you create an infrastructure around infectious diseases, they cannot do the operation. Whereas if you create an infrastructure around surgery, they can take care of malaria, TB, HIV, and COVID and everything at very little cost.
Okay.
Our problem is we haven't put in the infrastructure for if the entire policy of the countries revolves around surgeries, then everything else becomes a minor issue.
Right.
Yeah.
So how short are we of surgeons? Do we have any estimate like that?
India requires, I think, about 60 million, about 55, 60 million surgeries of all kinds per year.
Right.
Today, all the surgeons in the country put together perform 26 million surgeries.
Wow.
So we need to more than double.
45.
Yeah.
45 million surgeries can't be done because shortage of doctors.
And again, as I said, this is not heart operation, brain operation.
No, I'm not. I get it.
Small
Yes.
percentage. Yeah. Yeah.
Doctor, one thing is that people are worried. I'm coming back to COVID again because people are saying, can it recover also? Anybody who is recovered from COVID can get it again? Is there a possibility?
The chance so far, it is very hardly any cases of recurrent COVID happen. I'm not saying it may not happen, but even if it happens, it should have. If it was a norm, it should have happened by this time because millions of people are infected. So the fact that it hasn't happened, at least it may not happen in the immediate near future.
It happened in some countries. I read somewhere. It happened in some
But
countries.
you see, these are very, I'm not sure whether they have been proven with all the scientific analysis or just anecdotal incidents.
Since you are handling,
Yes,
you are a pediatrician, you are handling children at large numbers. People are concerned about children. What is the possibility? How to protect the children? What is the possibility, probability of children getting COVID?
see, fortunately, in our experience in India, I talked to a large number of pediatricians. They have seen a lot of kids infected with COVID, but they don't behave like as if they are infected. They go about their life as usual.
Yeah.
The problem with the kids is generally kids do not suffer from COVID in terms of all the complications, but they can infect others. Yeah, that's a problem. Yeah.
So they're immune. Basically, for children, they are safe. It's not fatal for them at least.
Yes.
But they can infect the persons in the family.
Yes.
I was looking at some TV channel just now where 10-year-old girl were talking about COVID. She suffered COVID and she saved her parents, everybody. She was confined to a room for 20 days and 14 days. So therefore, I thought I would ask that question. What is the possibility?
Doctor, going forward, we've been told by epidemiologists that we have to live with viruses. If it's, it can be SARS, it can be COVID, it can be something else next year. So what are the top 3 things you think India needs to do to cope with that challenge, which as everyone seems to suggest is going to happen?
See, if you really look at Asian countries, some of the Asian countries like Vietnam and to some extent, the few other countries, they have done reasonably well. I travel most of these countries. I always used to see people, this many, many years ago, large number of people were walking around the street with a mask.
Exactly. In Japan, for instance.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I thought as a surgeon, I thought that, it's pointless wearing a mask, according to me, was only for the surgeons when you're operating, protect the patient and yourself. But now there is enough evidence to prove that if you wear a mask, you not only protect yourself and you protect the others from spreading the virus. So this is something which should become a culture. The other issue is, like, we do have as Indians a lot of good habits. We always keep our footwear outside the house.
Right.
And we generally wish people with the namaste rather than
shaking hands.
So these kind of a behavioral change.
And we wash hands also before eating the food.
Yeah.
That's the Indian culture. That's what I'm saying. But if you were to recommend to the government, these 2-3 things should be done in the short term and long term, what would be the priorities if you suggest them?
See, the mask is already become a law.
It's a fashion statement. It's now a fashion statement. You have got gold made with a mask also.
Yes. So essentially, lot of things should be really brought about as a law. It should become a norm. Once it becomes a norm, like when you go to the meeting and if everyone starts doing like this, then nobody will put their hand and try to shake your hand. These are the things we have to learn to change our kind of the social behavior to some extent. Yeah.
You have to Indianize the world, it means.
To quite a large extent, yes.
What do we need in terms of medical, in terms of healthcare change, policy change?
We need to have more medical specialists. We need to equalize undergraduate and post-graduation seats in all the medical colleges.
Okay.
And we have to double the number of undergraduation seats with the existing number of medical colleges, which can be easily done.
Right.
All we have to do is there are about 250 or 300 private medical colleges and a similar number in the government. So each medical college should be asked to adopt one district hospital.
Okay.
And that becomes a medical college.
Right.
And the first half, the initial training program, preclinical training program, happens in the same huge campus of the medical colleges.
Right.
India is the only country where there is a law by the medical council that to run a medical college, you need 20 acres of land.
Yes.
So there is enough place to train 1,000 students.
Right.
All we are asking is, instead of training 100 students, train 200 or 300 students. Then rest of the training program is essentially apprenticeship.
Right.
They can work in any busy government hospital, and most of the training can happen online. And you can train wonderful doctors, great doctors.
But so training online is not allowed, isn't it, in India?
It is allowed now in the
Okay.
sense they are working from 9 to 5 in the hospital
Right.
as a student doctor,
Right.
right? They work, they assist the nurses, then they assist the doctors, and they learn. And the theory part, they can always learn it online.
Right. So
Dr. One last question which I want to ask is the peak over or not in terms of numbers? And
Yeah.
in terms of numbers as well as because India is a big country in terms of density or impact per million population, because that is the parameter we have to test. Its numbers may go up, peak may yet to come from 7 lakh, but I don't agree with the total number, cumulative number, because I would be more interested in active cases and serious cases, critical cases. Do you think, I'm asking a question, number of critical cases are likely to go up? Number of live cases are going to be very high in the near future?
See, some of the epidemiologists whose opinion I value and I respect, they predict that by end of the year, there will be 200 million infected patients in India. 200 million.
Cumulative, basically.
Yeah, cumulative. Yes, cumulative, 200 million. And within a year, their prediction is that about 40% of the country's population will be infected. But even if this happens, I am not unduly worried looking at the way the positive patients, infected patients behave. My only worry is if the people who are vulnerable get infected, like people with comorbid conditions, people who are having other diseases, if they land in the ICU, can we protect at least 50% of them? And I strongly believe, I spent my the first half of my training program as a heart surgeon in the ICU, and I loved my life in the ICU. And I know that good intensive care unit, especially with passionate doctors and dedicated nurses. Nurses make a huge, huge difference, because they are the doctors come and give the instruction, but they are the ones who are standing there for 8 hours bedside, monitoring what is happening with the patient.
right.
So unless we have young, dedicated, passionate nurses, you cannot change the rules of the game.
Doctor, you have also created a little more panic in the sense you believe people, you are more credible than needing help. But going by the past prediction, somebody predicted Delhi will have 3.5 million cases by June end. We have only about 1 lakh. So most of the predictions have gone wrong so far. And I hope what you are believing then that will also be not true in the future.
Mr. Chawla, we should be always prepared
Ready.
first and pray for the best.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, Dr. Shetty, just 2 quick questions before we wrap up. One, I wanted to understand, it's a good thing, but why is the recovery rate in India so high as compared to the rest of the world, given that we don't have so many facilities?
The one of the reason is we are blessed with a younger population. I think our average age is maybe 26, 27 years,
Right.
whereas in Europe the average age is about 46 years,
Right, right,
and they have a lot more older people.
right,
If you really look at the people who died, they're all old and vulnerable people.
right.
And even in Europe, Germany has the best outcome
Yeah,
compared to other countries.
right,
The reason is Germany has about 29 ICU beds for 1 lakh population.
right,
Uh, Italy, I think, has 11 or 12, and England has about 7 or 8.
right.
Yeah. So as you have more number of ICU beds, see in those countries they are not talking about. When you say ICU bed, you know that there are enough people enough doctors and nurses there to take care.
Right,
So the German medical education allows anyone to be a doctor.
right,
The entrance is open, exit is very rigid.
right.
Whereas here in our country, entrance is very, very rigid, but exit door is relatively wide open.
They will exist faster. I think
Yeah.
Corona will exist faster.
And just the last question, Doctor, I was reading somewhere about you were talking about yourself as a young doctor with the fear of HIV, spreading, and you were operating on a patient. And I wondered what your advice to young doctors in the front line of this COVID war would be, knowing that they fear for their lives, and they should, why not? What would your advice be from your own experience?
See, my first advice to everyone, people who are uncomfortable in facing HIV or a COVID patient should not be touching them.
Right.
There are enough other medical work they can do. And those who are motivated and have the desire to make a difference, only those people should come forward and offer their services. And you see, we are doctors. You cannot ask a soldier why he is at the forefront of when the bullets are, firing
Right.
everywhere. Why is that's a job. And at my age, I know it is risky to see patients and do operations and these long operations. It is risky. But then I chose this profession. This is what my passion is. So there are the people should be allowed to make their own choices. And once they make the choice, they have to be very, very, very cautious and protect themselves. They can't behave like cowboys. I see a lot of doctors running around without a mask, trying to show they're not bothered. But that is foolish because the family has invested on them, the country has invested on them. They can't just shows their manhood by exposing themselves foolishly. That's the only advice I have.
Yeah. Right. Thank you so much, Doctor.
Thank you,
Mr.
Doctor.
Chawla, any more questions?
No, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think it was a really illuminating discussion and we learned so much today. Thank you, Doctor, and all the best.
Thank you.